Good evening, guys. This is my second one tonight. Got another two after. Don't forget, two after. So it's 9:30. Then 11 o'clock tonight with Nino. So don't not go on here and go Nino, Nino. What everybody else does. Okay, so please, if you've got any messages, as usual, please leave the messages. And yes. So Emily, how are you?
I'm really good. How are you, Steve?
I'm okay. Oh, cool. We had connection problems yesterday,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we're okay now. So everything is going good.
Oh, awesome.
Now, what are you talking about tonight?
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, I usually am excited. that's just
Okay.
that's just the given. I mean, you've known me a while now, right? So, I'm just super thankful to have this opportunity to speak to everyone, Steve. So I just want to say thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for listening or watching or whatever you're doing. Okay, so we have been talking about my be the moment process. And we have done 3 of the layers. There are 7 total, and we're doing layer number 4 today. And I love to talk about. Oh, like I'm getting feedback or something. Oh, is it good now?
Okay.
Okay.
It's good now. Go on.
Yeah, because I was hearing myself and then got really confused. Okay. Um, So, just a quick background for me and why I'm doing what I'm doing is 5 years ago, I worked myself into complete exhaustion and I was unable to get out of bed for about 6 months. And in that space, I like to say that I accidentally found the present moment. And I accidentally found the power of now. There's a lot of different ways people say it. I accidentally found this magical space. And in that space, I found relief from my generalized anxiety disorder. I found relief from my OCD. I found relief from my perfectionism. All of those things, I believe, is what got me into the mess that I was in, which was my breakdown. And what's really interesting and why I want to talk about it today is because all of those things for me boil down to the thoughts that I was thinking.
Right.
And so, yeah, right. And so, here's the thing. So maybe you all know, and maybe I kind of knew, but I didn't realize that I was actually believing every thought that I was thinking. So I don't, if you asked me like 5 years ago or even farther back than that, do you believe every thought that you think? I would maybe answer, I don't think so. But the reality is that I really was, and I was taking it as truth, and I was letting it influence me and my emotions and affect my decisions, and they were really spiraling out of control. So it was so interesting is that, um, if I kind of realized that the perfectionism and the generalized anxiety disorder and the persistent negative thoughts, which means you just have these negative thought loops you can't turn off, they all worked together into this storm. um, and what the only way I can explain it really is that I would find myself on a runaway train that I couldn't stop, and most often it would end up in me having and crying, and depending on how upset I was how much I was crying and how long I cried.
Were you
um,
depressed at that time? Were you really low?
well, so here's the interesting piece is I wouldn't say that I was depressed, and actually I have taken psychological tests that really didn't show that I was depressed. And I'm really glad you asked that question, because what I believe now, looking back, is that all of those thoughts, all of that turmoil in my mind, brought on by all those different aspects that I shared, created this condition inside of my body, this heightened, really agitated, really intense emotional state, and my body um, couldn't contain it. So it was like a pressure cooker, and it would just get more and more and more intense, and it needed to release in some way. And the way that it released for me was crying. And it wasn't just like crying, sad crying, it was more like kind of like hysterical crying. So I imagine that some people that are feeling this heightened emotional state and they find themselves on their own runaway train, they might get really angry, and that's their release. So maybe they you know have to kick something, like, or like there has to be some sort of physical release, because I don't believe that our bodies can contain that amount of pressure, emotional pressure, for very long. Or it can. And then what I would say, what would happen to me also, besides these more acute outbursts or spells of crying that I would have, would be that I would actually have more long term, like I would cry for days, like on and off for like several days, and like not be able to function, not be able to get out of bed. And I, looking back now, I see that it was my body saying, I can't live with this pressure in this pressure cooker. I have to release it somehow. And so that was how I was releasing it. And there's lots of different ways, healthy ways and unhealthy ways, to release that pressure. And actually, one of the best ways, and I'm going to talk about this more in another one of the layers, because it's about this, is moving your body.
Right.
Like just whether it's walking, running, punching, dancing, all of that is a natural release of any pressure that we may have in our bodies. So what happened to me was, in this space that I found, this magical space of the moment, of being present, of being in the space, initially I connected to the first layer, which is grounding my body. So like I touched the arms of the rocking chair and I would just say, I'm okay, I'm safe. Because of anxiety, I was always in fight or flight, kind of worried that something might happen to me. And I didn't know what it might be. And I had some ideas of what it might be, but I didn't know. And then the next layer was, I found myself taking these deep breaths, just like, and what you find is so interesting, because I do this with people, is if you inhale and actually do like make some sort of sound when you're exhaling, you feel relief. So if you want to try it with Steve, you can with me, but it's like, and you feel better just all of a sudden, right? Even if it's just a little bit. And then the next layer that I discovered was being in nature. So I found myself sitting outside in the grass. So that's actually a really good way to ground yourself in physical space, taking deep breaths. And then I would start to observe just things around me. The sun, the wind blowing in the trees, the things like the air touching my skin, or the sun touching my skin, just like really general things. And there's something that I said last week I really want to point out here, is that there is a lot going on in present moment all the time. And what I found helps me is to focus on one specific thing at a time. And that's why I believe that the layers worked for me and why I created them, because I concentrate on one layer at a time. And I kind of go that way. And I now know, like, because I've been doing it for about 5 years or more now, that I know now which layer is going to help me right now to regulate my emotions and to feel better. And so what I want to talk about today was one of my favorite layers, which is what I call be the observer. there's so much in this layer. And so what I first want to say is, if you really like this layer and you want to find out more, I talk about it a lot in my book and I lead you through it. And then I also talk about it in my Be the Moment process. So you'll have more opportunity to delve into it, but we're just gonna like open it a little bit today. And maybe we'll even do it a little bit too after I share. So here's the thing. We have about 60,000, and some people believe it's more than that, 1,000 to 70,000 thoughts every day. And so I was kind of believing all of my thoughts. And so you can imagine, if I was believing all of the thoughts, that I was kind of on a runaway train a lot of the time. Because what happens is it's a chain reaction. So you have the thought, and then you have a judgment about the thought, and then you have an emotional response to the thought. And if you are in a state of high stress or high anxiety, and this is kind of how you're wired and how you react with the world, then a lot of these thoughts are triggering anxiety and then feelings of stress.
Right.
Yeah, and this was huge for me to realize this thing that I'm going to share with you right now is that, first of all, it's impossible that all of our thoughts are true. I
Right.
mean, if
I
we're
wish.
having that many,
I
I
wish.
mean, that would be kind of cool, right? That would mean we were probably God, which would be kind of cool, I guess. Um, but I'm sorry to say it's not true. That all of our thoughts aren't true. And even if they were all true, how in the world could we really give attention to that many thoughts? So there's a lot of stuff going on in our brains constantly, constantly, constantly. And so what I found was I had found this space of the moment, which I've shared so much. And that's why I'm here talking with you. I'm so passionate about it because it changed my life. Then I found this next layer of space. So I found the space of the present moment where I could breathe and I could be safe and I could pick and choose what I wanted to be aware of, what I call observe. And so you can add this next layer to those previous steps as well. And that's actually a really fascinating exercise to do, which maybe we can do at some point too, is add this observer layer to the previous three. But today, what we're going to talk about is becoming the observer of our thoughts. And for me, this was huge because what I started to realize I could do was see the thought, and instead of having a knee-jerk reaction to it, an instant reaction, an emotional response, a judgment, or things like that of my thought, I could find this space. And so, what the first step is to just sit and see if you can just recognize the thought. So we're not even going to think, we're going to try not to think anything about the thought. We're just going to see if we can say, oh, there's a thought. Oh, there's a thought. Oh, there's another thought, and have no judgment about it. We're just observing objectively the thought. So it's kind of like a a scientific experiment. And actually, how I do it, because I'm super visual, so I see things as pictures. That's really natural for me, and that may not be for other people. So what I found works for me might not work for someone else. But I actually see the thought like in a little thought bubble, like a comic strip. Like
Right.
do 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 do. There's a thought. Do 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 do. There's another thought. Um, and sometimes people might see like actual words, like this is the thought that I'm thinking, or there might be just a feeling, like you can feel that there's another thought. And so if we want right now, we can just do it for a couple moments just to see what happens. Does that sound good?
Sound good to me.
Okay, cool. What I find works for me is to close my eyes. So if you guys are able to close your eyes, I would suggest doing that. I think you could probably do it if you don't have your eyes closed. But so all you're going to do is close your eyes. And actually, sometimes I imagine that the back of my eyelids is like a screen, like a movie screen. And because I'm super visual, that works for me. So, but that might not work for you. So just sit quietly, take a deep breath if it feels good to you. And another one if it feels good. And rather than fighting the thoughts, because a lot of times people think that's what meditation is no thought. And I would say that it kind of is no thought, but it takes a while to get into that space and you can't force it. You have to just find yourself there. And if you resist thought, anything you resist actually increases or persists. So we're not fighting the thoughts, we're allowing the thoughts. And all we're doing right now is seeing if we can notice a thought. And we don't even have to notice specifically what the thought is. So you don't have to like say, oh, okay, this thought was about I need to go grocery shopping. Okay, this thought is, oh my gosh, I forgot to call this person. This thought is, oh yeah, I remember I need to do this thing. Or yeah, oh yeah, I forgot. I'm so great. That could also be a thought. So you don't have to know what the thought is. All we're doing right now is seeing if we can kind of sense or sort of observe when they might be happening. And the other interesting thing that happens, and this is totally psychological, is if you are looking for the thoughts, they might stop, which is also totally fine. So there's nothing right or I would say there's nothing wrong that can happen right now. All we're doing is giving space. So I'm going to be quiet because after I've coached you a little bit now, so I'm going to be quiet just for a bit and see what happens. And as you're doing it, I just want to point out that you may find yourself having judgments about your thoughts, and that's also okay. That it's just, this is a practice, and a practice means that we practice doing it. It means that it's not perfect, that we are honing a skill. And so for me now, because I do this so much, I'm able to slip into a space of objective observation and pretty easily. But I also can give you a couple examples of some thoughts you might be thinking in reaction to some thoughts is, oh, this is dumb. Why am I doing this? Or I could be thinking, oh, people probably think I'm weird. Or it could be, see, I knew I couldn't do this. I've tried this before and I can't do it. And so I'm just going to forget it. It's like, like an easy exercise that I'm doing with Emily and Steve, and I can't even do it. I can't even observe my own thoughts. So these are all responses or judgments that we're making to the thoughts that we're thinking. So also observe those thoughts because those are thoughts as well. And so kind of observe that thought. If you think, okay, I'm going to see if I can observe a thought. And then you're like, nope, I can't. Okay, this is dumb. Or I'm dumb or whatever. Okay, that's a thought too. Okay, check mark. I got it. I got a thought. And then, oh, now I'm thinking that I observed a thought and now I'm feeling like I'm pretty cool. And so all of these are thoughts. And so it's almost like popcorn. You just kind of let them come up. And then you're like, okay, there's one. Okay. And then see if your judgmental reaction or your instinctual need to judge the thought and judge yourself having the thought, see if that starts to kind of dissipate a little bit. And if it doesn't, that's fine, because it might be the first time you're doing this. Like I said, I've been doing this for like 5 years. So just give yourself a couple more moments here. And after you do this for a while, what you may notice is that the thoughts start to slow down. Because here's the thing about thoughts. I think of thoughts as little children. So if you want, you can keep your eyes closed or you can open them. It's up to you. But here's the thing. I see thoughts as little children. And if you are a parent or if you were a child, that's everybody, then you know little children are like, pay attention to me. And the story that I tell is my mom at the swimming pool. So I was a fish when I was a kid, and I loved swimming, and I loved doing all these tricks and stuff, jumping in the pool and all these different things. And so my poor mom, but whenever she would take us to the pool, I'd be like, Mom, look at this. Mom, look at that. Mom, the whole time for like 2 hours. And so that is how I think of our thoughts. It's like, Emilie, wait, you got to look. And then I got to look at this and you got to look at that. So you have 60,000 children in your head saying, look at this, look at that. This is super important. And if you can, or when you give space to the thoughts, they feel seen. I don't know if they feel, but what seems to happen to me, and in this metaphor of the thought being a child, let's say it's a child and it feels seen, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. My mom saw me. Now I can do something else. And then the thought kind of goes away. And so oftentimes that's what I feel like happens is if we allow the space, then the thoughts come up, and they come up fast at first. And then you start to notice that you're having thoughts about the thoughts. And then you start to notice those kind of go away. And then the thoughts sort of slow down. And then you might not have a completely quiet mind, but it may be a little quieter. And if nothing else, you've practiced observing your thoughts and experiencing that there can be a space between, and what I mean by space is almost there is a gap, a time gap. There's a space between the thought you're thinking and your reaction to the thought. And so that's the first layer of this. There's so much more to it, but I wanted to just do a little introduction today to see if we can recognize the thought and see if we could practice a space of what I call unreactivity or non-judgment of ourselves, thinking the thoughts. Like, this is a bad thought, this is a good thought. And then from there, I'm bad because I thought this bad thought.
But that was brilliant, because
got,
what I was getting, I was in this, I was on a motorway in a car, and all of a sudden I could see these signs coming up, and it was going fast, and I kept on going on and on and on, and it was slowing down. Then I kept on going to a point where the thoughts were getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Oh, I love that picture of being on the motorway with the signs. That's really good.
Yeah. So
I
the
like
signs were coming up to my face, and then all of a sudden, as I was gradually going along, it was just they were disappearing.
And I like that idea too of the signs, because then that's more objective. It's like, oh, there's a sign. I don't have to have judgment about that. It's just another sign. It's not a big deal. And then you can accept it more. So that's so cool. I love that.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Before I go, you got there's something about about your background. It's all red and everything. Is it a light or something?
Oh yeah. So I have this. I have this light in here, and it looks like it's turning everything orange today. I think it's because it's so dark and rainy outside, so
Right.
it's making it look weird in here. It just makes me look like I have a tan, maybe. I don't know.
That was brilliant. That was very good. That was very good. Thank you very much for that.
Great. That was,
And
thanks.
I'll be in touch on Friday to arrange a meeting with you. All right.
That sounds great.
Okay, guys. So that was really, really good. Don't forget, come back. Let me know. Let me know what happened because that, it was like I was in a tunnel and all of a sudden, I was in the motorway and I was just going down the motorway and that was really good. And
Yeah, I'd love to hear, other people if they could get back to you and tell
yeah,
you what
that's
they
what
were
I'm doing
saying.
now.
I love it. Yeah.
All right then. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.